I know even less about brewing than I do about farming. That is the man whose beer just outgrew every other private drinks company in the west of England. Jeremy Clarkson did not set out to build an empire. He set out to get rid of a barley crop he could not sell. 4 years later, that problem has become a £44 million business, stocked in more than 2,000 pubs, exported to 10 countries, and growing faster than almost any private company in Britain. So how does a man who insists he is making it up as he goes along end up here? To understand the beer, you have to start with the field. In 2021, on Diddley Squat Farm, near Chipping Norton, Clarkson harvested a crop of spring barley. On paper, it should have been a small victory. In reality, it was a dead end. Government farm subsidies had been cut, the price of grain had collapsed, and the barley in his store was, by his own account, close to worthless. A farmer with a worthless crop has two choices: let it rot or turn it into something else. He chose lager. But here is where the story stops being a celebrity side project and becomes something stranger. Clarkson did not build a brewery from scratch. He walked into one that already existed. The Cotswold Brewing Company had been founded back in 2005 by a couple named Emma and Rick Keane, who had spent years quietly making proper lager in a stone building near Bourton-on-the-Water. They knew exactly what they were doing. Clarkson, by his own admission, did not. So he partnered with the people who did and bought his way in. The first attempt was not good enough. The early batch was put up against a local beer in a blind taste test, and it lost. Most celebrity ventures would have buried that detail. Clarkson rebrewed the whole thing, and when it was ready, he gave it a name with real weight behind it. Hawkstone, after a Neolithic standing stone that has sat near his farm for thousands of years, a marker of permanence in a story that was anything but planned. Although if Clarkson had got his way, you would be drinking something called lager McLagerface. The advertising agency vetoed it for not conveying a premium image, which may have been the most important decision in the entire history of the brand. With a name and a product, the brewery needed attention. What it got was controversy, and Clarkson understood something most drinks companies spend millions failing to learn. A banned advert is worth more than a broadcast one. He produced a series of television commercials for Hawkstone, and the Advertising Standards Authority refused to let several of them air. One showed Clarkson drinking a pint of his own lager in the morning, before heading out to work. It was pulled, so he posted it to his millions of followers and asked them to guess why it had been banned. The notoriety did what a multi-million-pound ad campaign could not. When Hawkstone Lager first went on sale, it became the best-selling beer on Amazon. The branding had a quiet discipline underneath the chaos. The platform was simple, hard to make, easy to drink. It positioned Hawkstone as a farmer's beer, made from a real crop on a real farm, rather than a name stamped onto someone else's product. And it worked so well that Hawkstone became the most followed beer brand on Instagram anywhere in the world. But notoriety only gets you so far. The real test of any British beer is the one thing Clarkson could not control with a viral video: getting it poured in pubs. Britain's pub trade is notoriously hard to break into, locked up by big brewers and supply deals. So Hawkstone did not fight that head on. It went after independents first, the free houses that could choose what they put on tap. Then it kept climbing. The beer reached his own pub, the Farmer's Dog in Asthole, and from there into more than 2,000 venues across the country. Supermarket listings followed, with Waitrose, Sainsbury's and Morrison's, all putting it on their shelves. And then came the moment that confirmed this was no longer a novelty. Heineken, one of the largest brewers on the planet, took a minority stake in the business to help with logistics and distribution. A global giant does not buy into a vanity project. It buys into something it expects to grow. It was right. The numbers are where this story stops being charming and turns serious. In the financial year to March 2026, Hawkstone reported sales of £44.9 million. The year before, the figure was £21.3 million, roughly double in 12 months. That was enough to name it the fastest growing private company in the entire West Country in the Sunday Times 100. The beer that started as a failed harvest is now exported to 10 European countries, and Elon Musk was photographed drinking a bottle of it on a yacht in France. You could not buy that kind of reach if you tried. Now, none of this has been smooth. In 2023, a batch of the cider over-fermented and had to be recalled, a serious problem for any drinks brand. Clarkson's response tells you most of what you need to know about how this business actually works. He admitted in plain terms that they had got it completely wrong, and then he watched sales go up because the honesty landed better than any denial would have. The range kept widening anyway, into cider, gin and vodka, low alcohol options, even a fruit cider he cheerfully called a children's party drink with a buzz. But underneath all of it sits a contradiction the marketing never quite mentions. The whole story is built on the idea of a farmer's beer, brewed from grain grown on his own land. And yet Diddley Squat's own harvest has failed to meet the standard the brewery needs, so Hawkstone now sources its grain from other British farms instead. The beer that made its name on the romance of one specific field has quietly outgrown that field entirely. Clarkson, to his credit, does not hide it. He simply points out that the barley is still British, just no longer only his. Which brings us back to where we started. A man who says he knows almost nothing about brewing has built the fastest growing brewer in his corner of the country, and he is not finished. He has hinted that buying pubs could be the next move, noting that a worrying number are up for sale, and that owners would, in his words, bite your arm off to sell. He talks, half joking, about getting Hawkstone into 200,000 pubs from the Pacific Northwest to Brisbane. Tongue-in-cheek, maybe, but the man has a habit of turning things he claims not to understand into businesses worth tens of millions. What started as a worthless crop in a Cotswold barn is now a Heineken-backed, internationally exported drinks empire, built on controversy, honesty, and a famous face that knew exactly when to admit it had no idea what it was doing. The barley failed, the beer did not.